Welcome to the Design Vault, a show about the past, present, and future of design. The Design Vault is a conversation hosted by Shum and Thamer Abanami, reflecting on iconic products and ideas from the past and rethinking them from new perspectives.
Hey, Albert, I've been thinking about how we mostly talk about complicated machines and sophisticated electronics, but today's episode is about something pretty simple, a plastic egg with 3 buttons.
There are many planets in our universe, but only one of them is
Tamagotchi Planet!
Yeah, the Tamagotchi. You know what's really fascinating about this little device? I remember back then, during the 90s, the digital experience at that time was so focused on video games, and the PlayStation came out, everyone's focused on 3D graphics and processing powers.
Yeah.
Well, this little device with just a few pixels created this rich emotional connection that most products at that time didn't have.
Exactly. It's not just a story about a virtual pet. It's about how a simple design shined a light on how humans relate to technology. I mean, they literally named a psychological phenomenon after it.
Yeah, it's the Tamagotchi effect. And what really stood out for me as a designer is this mass-produced consumer product, really a toy, needed this constant emotional investment from its user. It's literally, people were carrying around with it all day, and kids, but sometimes even adults, and kind of like how we carry around our phone today. And I think there's a lot of parallels between Tamagotchi and how we use phones today.
100%.
The timing of all this was also really crucial. Thamer, what was happening in Japan during the 90s?
Oh, yeah. Mid-90s was a fascinating confluence of economic and cultural factors that created this perfect environment for something like the Tamagotchi to come to the market. Let's talk economically. The country was in the midst of this lost decade.
Yeah, the bubble burst, right? After the 80s.
Yeah, the bubble burst. Yeah. During the 80s, the stock market was just bursting. And
land prices.
Yeah, real estate was going up. And all of a sudden, people woke up and their houses were worth half what they were worth yesterday.
I remember the stat was the real estate in Tokyo at that time was worth as much as all of California or something crazy like that.
Yeah, something actually, yes. I think I read that the Imperial Palace only was worth more than the state of California. Oh. But yeah, it's one of those two. And so you had, as a result of loss of value in real estate, loss of value in the stock market, traditional consumer spending went down. And young consumers were seeking things that were more affordable or affordable luxuries. And economic constraints were driving innovative solutions in the market. And there was this need for cost-effective entertainment options. The gaming industry, like you said, was focused on graphics and processing power. Game Boy was dominating portable gaming at around $90 in 1990s money. Mobile phones were beginning to emerge, but there was a gap in the market for something simple and engaging, and most companies were overlooking this concept of an emotional connection.
Yeah, maybe it's that classic product market fit conversation. I think did the need find itself or a solution, or someone fulfill that need in the market?
Yeah.
Maybe it's a little bit of both.
Maybe a little bit of both. And culturally also, there was this rise of kawaii culture and technology.
Right. That's kawaii is like that cute, fun, personality driven, kind of character driven, a lot of character driven.
Very cute characters.
Yeah.
And
like Hello Kitty, right, would be the classic example.
Yes. So that was really rising in the culture, changing attitudes towards digital experiences. And there was this shift from pure utility to emotional design. And obviously, as you kind of know, the Japanese youth culture seeking new forms of expression. And so you kind of have this perfect setup for what happened. But before we dive into that, there's also kind of the players, right? There's a couple of companies and a couple of characters in these companies. And we should start with Bandai, which is a company with a fascinating backstory. It was founded in 1950 as a toy and hobby company. It built its success through a lot of licensed character merchandise. And by the 90s, they were facing a lot of pressure to innovate in the electronic toy market and looking for ways to compete with video game companies.
Yeah, and I think this is where this small independent toy design company called Wiz comes into the picture.
It was a much smaller but innovative company, and it was like this creative engine behind Tamagotchi. It's a small firm led by Akihiro Yokoi. If you remember this name from a previous episode, Yokoi, Genpei Yokoi was behind the Game Boy, but in our research, we did not find any familial relation between these two characters.
So Wiz was an independent kind of toy design company?
But I think more importantly, these two companies are behind this product. And Albert, you have a lot of background in the toy industry from your work. Can you explain how this... Can you explain?
I don't know a lot of backgrounds. It's a bit
Were you not the original inspiration behind Mr. Potato Head?
No, that was not me. My hair, maybe, but I did actually after school. I worked for a small toy company. It was called Yes Entertainment, which was an offshoot of Worlds of Wonder. Wow, Worlds of Wonder, and they were the creators of Talking Teddy Bear, and I worked on this little electronic toy similar to Tamagotchi. It was called Yak Pack.
I think I've heard of it.
I think it was used in Home Alone.
Howdy do. This is Peter McAllister, the father. I'd like a hotel room, please.
Plaza Hotel Reservations, may I help you?
Howdy do. This is Peter McAllister, the father.
Yes, sir.
You can record like 5 seconds of your voice and play it back. And obviously, kids didn't record their voice; they recorded other bodily noises. And I remember, like back then, that actually still is. The toy industry is fascinating because it has a rich history of having independent toy inventors. So annually, there's a event in New York City called New York City Toy Fair, where toy companies like like the big ones like Milton Bradley, Mattel would show their new products, but it's also where inventors would pitch their ideas to toy companies. Hey, here's a new concept. And I think similarly, a lot of the toys I worked on were working with toy inventors like Wiz. And they would come up with concepts, they would make a prototype, they would kind of demonstrate how fun it was and pitch the story and you work with toy companies to get this produced. So similarly, I believe Wiz was this independent toy company that worked with Bandai to get this Tamagotchi concept into the marketplace.
Yeah, that totally tracks with the research. Akihiro Yokoi, who was the president of Wiz and the lead concept developer, came up with this idea. And then he contacted Aki Mehta, who was a marketing lead at Bandai, about developing it. And the inspiration Akihiro Yokoi had was this TV commercial showing a boy that could not take his pet turtle on vacation.
Yeah, that's a familiar problem I've had.
Yes. Yes. Yokoi was also a pet owner, and he saw this potential of kids having pets that didn't need cleanup, that were inexpensive, that didn't have all the traditional entanglements of having a real pet, but could also teach you responsibility and provide some kind of connection. So the original concept was this watch-based virtual pet. The name comes from combining two words, egg and watch. And Tamago is egg and Oichi is watch. You kind of change it and it says Tamagotchi, right? The original prototypes were wristwatch designs. User testing showed a preference for a separate device. So the keychain format emerged from the need to be portable. And as we were talking about this last decade, having it be low cost was desirable. So there's extreme focus on simplicity driven by constraints.
But also this idea of it was very portable, right? This
Yes.
keychain, like something you would, I remember seeing it like you could clip it to the back of your backpack, or even some people wore it. It's something that almost feels like it's very personal, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's personal expression, right?
Right.
But let's talk about the gameplay real quick so people are kind of all level set. Tamagotchi is designed to evolve in response to the player's care and engagement. A device would beep, and the character would demand that the player feed it or clean up after it.
But I remember it's literally like an egg that you hatch. You would hatch your Tamagotchi kind of.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, it was an egg with a broken kind of like zigzag, jagged thing that showed a screen. And the way you would kind of hatch it is you would pull this tab in the battery back. The battery door would have this tab. You pull that tab and that's on. And once it's on, it's on. There's no pause button
Right.
for a Tamagotchi. It's not. And so basically the device would beep, asking you to feed, clean, or discipline the pet. You would always see these stats.
Or play with your pet. You could play with it too.
Or play with it. Yes, playing with it. Like if you just fed it and didn't play with it, it would be unhappy and you'd have some problems. And so good caretaking would result in this character not only being healthy, but evolving, because it would start very super simple and it would evolve into something that you didn't know what it would evolve into exactly. That was part of the allure. And if you did a good job, it will be a well-mannered, but inattention would result in maybe a delinquent or surly character. But also, if it was ignored, eventually the Tamagotchi would die.
Consequences.
In the Japanese version. In the US version...
Or behavioral economics.
Yes. They were probably afraid of lawsuits in the US version. And I'm pretty sure they were afraid of emotional damage lawsuits or something. In the US version, it doesn't die. It returns to its home planet.
Oh, so they created a very different user experience or
ending sequence.
Key part of the user. Yeah, key part of the user experience.
Yeah, and then it ends and then you can start over.
Huh.
Albert, could you help our listeners actually visualize what this device looks like?
Yeah. You kind of mentioned the gameplay and how you kind of nurture your Tamagotchi and in some ways kind of raise your Tamagotchi. I think the entire UI is and the product design is to help you literally nurture your Tamagotchi. So it's egg shape. It's actually made of plastic and fits nicely into the palm of your hand, about the size of a cookie. And it's smooth, shiny plastic. Usually comes in different colors: pastel, baby blues, soft pink, gentle yellow. And on the face, there's this square LCD. It's quite small. It's about the size. The LCD is about the size of a postage stamp. And sitting in the center is a little window to another world where your Tamagotchi lives. And below their screen, there's 3 circular buttons arranged in a triangular pattern. And the whole thing dangles from a keychain, making it look like a piece of jewelry or back to like a fashion item you clip on the back of your backpack. It's back to that kawaii. It's very cute. And the texture and patterns, it's literally like a cracked egg where you can see the screen. Even though it is just a few pixels arranged in this kind of clever way, it did have a very expressive element. And I think the UI, the UX was given the constraints, I think they did some really fun things that did make it engaging rather than it's just a dancing around pet.
The way they were able to get so much expressiveness out of just a few pixels for this character design and how the character evolved was quite fascinating. But let's break down what makes this design iconic. What are the elements that earned it a place in design history?
In some ways, toy design, they're very pretty simple, right? Because you have a lot of constraints. But I would say the revolutionary or the key design elements is it was the first virtual pet. This idea was something that's almost like alive.
Correction, first successful virtual pet.
Sorry, first successful.
If we ignore the pet rock, which we all
that's true. But it had this kind of pioneering digital experiences, interaction
for sure,
where you're trying to take care of your Tamagotchi, and at least I felt it was one of those things where it's not pure utility, but it's also there is some utility there because you're trying to take care of something. That create this emotional attachment is another key point that we mentioned. Ultimately, it is in some ways a new paradigm for user engagement, which is still a key part of how we design digital experiences today. So that I think those are the key revolution elements. In terms of design, again, it's a very simplistic toy because you're constrained by cost. Like one of the things I remember designing toys or even designing products even today, your biggest constraint is always your display because it's probably one of the most expensive piece of components. So with that tiny screen, how do you pack in all the interactions and still make it fun, engaging, but also this emotional design inside the hardware? I feel like it's a really good integration between fashion and function and fun.
So obviously you had to use a mouse or some VR goggles to engage with this. What was the input model?
Right.
Like how many input methods did you have for this?
Well, there's only 3 buttons. So, and I believe the LCD screen, and this is kind of crazy, it's only like 32 by 20 pixels.
Wow.
So it's definitely not 4K or 10K. And the exact size, I believe the screen itself was only 1.2 inches wide by 1.5 inch tall. So quite small. It was tactile buttons. I think that's probably one of the things we're still kind of struggling with, that tactility. Like when you want to make something emotionally engaging, I think having that tactility, being able to like press a button and see a reaction in your Tamagotchi, like that makes it engaging. It's that little fidget factor, right? And this portability, being able to carry with you, and having a long battery life.
Right.
It's also very durable too. I think that portability, like if you drop it, the screen's not going to shatter, right? So I think those are the key aspects of this physical design.
So basically you have the egg shape, the 3-button interface, and how this display forced this very creative expression of the character.
Yeah. And if I kind of build on that, the digital design elements are also important. Back to the character design. How do they create that, again, we call it kawaii, but that sense of cute character? They did a really good job of, again, you have so little mixos to play with. The character design, I think, is so key in terms of making that Tamagotchi feel like it's alive.
Yeah, I was looking at in the research around how these characters were drawn and evolved, and you can literally see the emotion of the character in this small set of pixels.
Yeah.
It's from serious to naughty to frail to stubborn, all that stuff. It's quite interesting how they're able to pull that off.
Well, in addition to that, I think they use sound design.
Was it stereo or was it surround?
Yeah. It was spatial. Yeah, it's usually if you take apart toys in that era, they have this little piezo speaker in the back that vibrates and creates audible beeps. That's about it. But it did, just by changing frequency, modulating frequency, you could create sense of urgencies in that beep, so that you know it's time to feed it, or it's in distress. So the audio cue was another way to kind of, again, back to creating that emotional connection. Like, oh, I need to feed my Tamagotchi.
Right. It's like a baby crying. My baby is crying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes it feel like it's alive. And now you have a more of an emotional stake in the well-being of your Tamagotchi.
And then we get into the interface. What, what kind of interface can you do in this?
The interface is, there's only, in terms of hierarchy, there's only 3 parts. There's the main part, like the main screen in the middle. And then top of the main screen, there's the icons. And on the bottom of the screen, there's icons. And the main screen, obviously, that's where the animation or the character would react based on your inputs. But the icons on the top row were focused on care and feeding and playing of your Tamagotchi. So it had a fork and a knife icon to, hey, it's time to feed your Tamagotchi, to a little ball that you could play with your Tamagotchi. Ball and bat, a light bulb that turns the light on and off. So when your Tamagotchi is sleeping, you go to bed. To, I think the fourth icon on the top is this syringe. I know it's kind of weird. You have a syringe. It's actually medicine for caring for your Tamagotchi if it gets sick. So that's kind of like the kind of nurturing part. And then on the bottom, there's 4 icons that are more, I would say, status of your Tamagotchi. I know it's very modern UI, but it would have like happy or sad face. There would be a duck or poop icon, I believe, to show like, you need help clean it up, I guess. The other one was this kind of meter to indicate the health of your Tamagotchi. And I think the last one was this sound icon, speaker icon.
Interesting.
Those are the basic elements of, again, very constrained design that packed a lot in terms of creating a rich emotional connection through, I would say, novel gameplay. A lot goes into making something really simple.
100%. And this is, for clarification, this is the original generation of Tamagotchi.
Gen 1.
Yeah, Gen 1. these have been in production. Tamagotchi's been in production, and they eventually had these.
And they're still in production today. You could go to the store and buy one.
Yeah, for $20, you can get an originals edition, but also you have these ones that have the ability to connect. You have these ones with color screens, etc. So it's been kind of constant evolution on the product side. But really, we're talking about the original, which is what started it all. And what's fascinating about it is how they turn these technical constraints into advantages, and how every limitation became this opportunity for innovation. They had life cycle simulation, personality development algorithms, random event generation. And this is really important. The randomness factor in Tamagotchi is one of its secrets.
Yeah, like meaning my Tamagotchi was different than yours.
Yeah.
And also how it evolved, right?
Yeah. B.F. Skinner found in his research that if you have random time intervals with a reward, it will be more impactful than if it was on a predictable schedule. And so there's this kind of randomness factor in the Tamagotchi, I think, is one of the keys to the success of the engagement model.
Yeah, it's also like, not to pontificate too much, like AI agents today, but I feel like there's a lot of parallels, like
100%.
Like back to that branching.
100%.
Well, all this technical sophistication was, again, hidden behind a very, very incredibly simple interface that any child could use. You can pick it up and immediately know the interface. You don't need to read the manual, or there's no big, long setup routine. There's no Euler, I don't believe, that we have to approve. And that's really the magic of it, that something so complex feels so effortless to use and play with.
100%. And I think we should talk about the impact that all these design decisions had, because this little device changed a lot more than just how we play with toys.
Yeah, for sure.
If you kind of squint at this, you can see that we're dealing with a lot of the same challenges and opportunities today.
In many ways, Tamagotchi was a preview of our current relationship with technology. It sounds dramatic, but I do believe that it was a precursor of our relationship and how we engage, but also that emotional connection that we talked about.
100%.
The cultural, technological, and business impact were quite far-reaching.
On the culture side, it really changed the perception of digital relationships. There's this thing called the Tamagotchi effect, which is literally the development of emotional attachment with machines, robots, or software agents.
Samantha?
Hi, sweetheart. Theodore, there's some things I want to tell you.
And so this is the device that really coined this term. And it created new social behaviors around technology. It influenced parent-child dynamics with devices, established a precedent for digital responsibility, and it sparked this global phenomenon crossing age and gender boundaries.
And I would also add, like, and perhaps this is my own kind of editorial, we tend to personify technology, even with AI bots, like, or go all the way back to Clippy. But we try to give it a name, like Alexa, and there's a personality, like, oh, you're creating this relationship with this. At the same time, it's just codes.
Yeah,
it's just ones and zeros. And I do think Tamagotchi effects show early on that our relationship with technology can be far-reaching and change our behavior.
Yeah, it's quite complicated. I don't want to kind of just paint this with one brush. But I think it becomes increasingly a consideration for us as we engage in the design of technology in today's current technological landscape.
And what are some of those technological innovations that Tamagotchi highlighted?
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things is the game loop is always going.
Right. It's always on.
Always going, right? They did code in some basics so it wasn't on during sleep hours, but it was otherwise always going. And I think you can easily see the connection with current services that we use today, right?
Oh yeah, or this idea of persistent worlds, right? It's the even though your Tamagotchi is sleeping, it's still alive.
Yeah,
it started also creating almost like a service, like you feed it, and again, gameplay has evolved so much, but this idea of like downloadable content, you need to feed your Tamagotchi in order for it to survive or grow or thrive. I think that idea that you are going to almost consume or purchase items for your Tamagotchi, or I think that started a whole new different way for us to kind of interact with technology.
100%.
And what is the business transformation part of Tamagotchi, would you say, Thamer?
Number one, establish this new product category of a virtual pet, right? It demonstrated the value of emotional connection in tech, which is something that we get picked up later. Influenced the gaming industry direction, new marketing strategies. There was a lot of cross promotion and character promotion. Let's say you're literally a game show in Japan and you want to have your game show promoted in Tamagotchi. They would have these game show characters in special edition Tamagotchis, etc. And it showed really the potential of cross-cultural product design, where something that was improbably successful in one place became improbably successful in another place. And so you had success in Japan, success in the United States.
Well, and also showed like this, and this is my terminology, maybe it's called differently, but like character-driven products, that kawaii effect, where Tamagotchi became a character. And then once you have a character, then it could go and extend into like both in terms of the virtual world, but also the physical world. You buy accessories, you buy all this other thing that's based on the character.
Yeah.
The business model around those character design it's a whole industry, right?
Totally.
And one of the most fascinating legacy is how Tamagotchi essentially created the blueprint for gamifying our everyday experiences.
Right. They basically wrote the playbook that a lot of apps and platforms still use today. So let's talk about this idea of the gamification of UI and experiences. You have these core mechanics like regular check-in requirements, care-based reward systems, progressive difficulty scaling from easy to difficult, achievement-based evolution, and social proof elements. And that sounds like, if you think about things like Foursquare, you think about things about Yelp, you think about social media platforms, you see a lot of these.
Right. It's not just for games, right?
It's not just for games, right? It's the mechanics of engagement, right?
Right. And it's really that loop.
Yeah. And this brings us to this idea, another important concept, digital addiction and its relation with engagement. You want to jump into that, Albert?
Yeah, that loop, that FOMO, and there's been quite a bit of research on this, is that sense of fear of missing out, because it's also an effect where by feeding your digital trigger, your hunger, that itch, there's actually a dopamine hit. And that's how social media loops work, right?
Yeah.
You're checking on your social media feed because, like, hey, you want to know what's happening. You don't want to miss out. Or you need to post so that you feel like, hey, you're being engaged or being seen. That's the same kind of trigger reward loop that a lot of social media engagement patterns have developed.
Yeah.
The jury's still out on how do we deal with that and what are the long-term effects, but also what are the things that we can do to kind of mitigate some of the harms.
We're also seeing some of these same patterns emerge with AI companions. It's back to the Tamagotchi effect. You are creating some emotional connection with an object or an agent. We have to look at human and AI relationship patterns, emotional attachment to digital assistants, trust development in AI systems, how you would design an interface for AI interaction. And then there's this ethics question of emotional engagement turning potentially into emotional manipulation.
You talk to anyone else while we're talking?
Yes.
How many others?
8,316.
It sounds pretty heavy. And back to the simple toy, which was fun.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And the consequences were low, right?
Yeah. You can hit a reset button on the back with a pin if you got too anxious or remove the battery.
So whereas it's hard to hit reset
on your life
in our digital lives today.
Yeah, exactly. It's always going.
Try to turn everything off or delete your social media feed. It's hard. I do think, especially as we kind of look forward in AI, our relationship is evolving. That as AI agents, agentic AI becomes more and more of our lives, how do we take the learnings from the Tamagotchi effect and make sure that we are creating experiences that are nurturing, that helps give you the control, but also understand the consequences, both intended and unintended. What happens when you stop using an AI agent? Those are the just as important questions of things that we can do, but also things that we don't do with AI agents.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we could go on about this for a long time, but if we want to wrap our exploration of Tamagotchi, what strikes me most is how this really simple device predicted so many of our current challenges and opportunities with technology.
And it is lessons that are probably even more relevant today than they were in the 90s. I think these enduring design principles that we covered, the simplicity and constraint, such a core theme that goes through a lot of these successful iconic designs, where you have a very intuitive design that balance the constraints so that you have enough features, back to that minimum viable product market fit. The thing that we talk about, but in design execution is actually really, really hard.
100%.
And then the second part of kind of these enduring design principle is really the emotional design. And we tend to look at the form as the only part of like, oh, look at the object. And I think it's that meaningful digital connection that these simple, small, tiny display can create such a rich emotional digital connection. And having an interface that allows you to do that is such a key part of user experience design.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of design for emotional impact and emotional engagement here.
Yeah. And again, we've kind of discussed this, the ethics of that emotional engagement is going to be something that we're going to continue to explore in our work. As new technology emerges, it's going to be more and more important that we understand the implications of what we're creating with this very powerful emotional engagement that we can create.
I think that's a great note to wrap on. The story of the Tamagotchi shows us that great design isn't just about technical sophistication. It's really about this connection between people and technology. And the questions that Tamagotchi raise about our relationship with digital devices are more relevant than ever in today's technological landscape. And perhaps more importantly, it reminds us that sometimes the most impactful innovations come from embracing constraints, come from thoughtful design, and come from trying something new. Thanks for joining us for another exploration of iconic design, and special thanks to Albert for a great discussion today.
Thank you.